I'll this to you when
It's on.
Let's do it.
My name is Sally Fatmeyer.
My name is Joshua Dooley.
I'm Morgan Adkins.
My name is Brandon Narvison.
I'm Allison Narvison.
Of course, when we were younger, we were brought up going to a different church. We were obligated to go, and the older I got, I felt like I just used to make excuses not to go to church, saying I was going to go and running in and getting a bulletin, and then going home. I had nothing to go for.
When I first came to High Point Church, hear about the believer's baptism, I knew it was something that I should do. Had a lot of internal pride to say, I already was baptized, I already believe, I don't need to do this again. I realized how shallow and my faith was. I believed in Jesus as much as I believe 1 + 1 is 2, or that the capital of Wisconsin is Madison. But to have a deeper connection with Jesus and to understand the true love of God was not as full as it should have been.
It started out as entitlement, and it was, I'm in control over my own life. I'm Lord of my own life. I can do things my own way. And once I realized that I can't be God, it turned into a different tactic where I decided that I was going to try to be very, very good and do things very, very well. And it was all about following the law and these rules that were set up, and I followed them.
And actually I have vivid memories of accepting Christ as a pretty young child with my grandma. And around that same time, I was 10 or 11 years old. My parents went through a divorce, and naturally that rocked our whole family. And all my siblings and I have dealt with that in a very different way. For me, it really came down to trust. Over the last couple of years, I've started to think about, maybe this is also impacting my relationship with Christ in terms of not being able to trust Him and relying too much on myself.
I hadn't had a lot of exposure to Christianity or church settings, but I knew there was something missing. I dealt with some anxieties and stresses as a kid and in college, and there was never really anything that fulfilled that emptiness feeling when you had that. During one of the fall mini-series, they were starting temporary small groups, and Brandon looked to me and said, I think we should join a small group, and I was in absolute shock, but we did. So we were greeted by Lloyd at the table, which was hard to turn down. I was terrified. I didn't know what value I could bring to this group of Christians. Would this group of Christians welcome me as a non-believer?
My life just got so stressful, and I just had so many health issues in that, so it just got out of control. And then Andy just saw all this in me. Him and I went on a bike ride, the MS 150 bike ride. He said he would do it tandem style with me if I would come to church and give it a try.
One of the keynote speakers there had said, everybody close your eyes and think about what you picture God. He gave many examples of what God wasn't, and the one that really struck me was when he said, God's not the man standing there with his arms crossed, mad at you for everything that you did.
You come to a point where you realize that you're not perfect. You're not God and you're not perfect, so what is there? And at that point, I was at a crossroads where I could either go back to being God of my own life, or I had to let God be God.
I would frequently ask the question or make the statement, there's gotta be something more, there's gotta be a bigger purpose for me, what is it? Just not really feeling fully satisfied in my day-to-day. I'd be striving to advance my career and everything else, and everything seemed to be going perfectly well, but yet I felt this lack of purpose, and really at the end of the day, it's just Christ.
One of the members of my small group just kind of, asked, what is it that's kind of holding you back? At that point, it just seemed right. So from then on, I have become a follower of Christ.
It was just an eye-opener for me. I can't even explain what a difference it was from what I was raised, doing and feeling more obligated to. Wow. Next thing I know, his family, they gave me a Bible, my very first Bible, and that just, was the world to me. It's hard for me to talk about because it was just, it was just such a different experience for me.
A surprising sense of peace. It's been really comforting to know that, when life seems really overwhelming and your day-to-day tasks seem, daunting, that there's something bigger than this. You can always turn to Christ.
God's actually a loving Father, and He's opening His arms for us and, wiping the dirt off our pants and taking the gravel out of your hands when you fall and the aspect of love really started, to become, a key part of my faith.
You're free of being God. It's a role that you can't handle, and so you're free of all of the things outside of your control. You're free of the fear of failure. It's always winding back toward this life full of grace. I have made the choice that Jesus is my Lord and Savior. He died, was buried, and rose again, and I'm following that in baptism and being Christian and living out my life.